When was the last time you caught the bus? A new report from the centre-left think tank, the Institute for Public Policy Research, says passenger numbers are going down as fares have gone up.
The report says that there hasn't been enough competition between different companies since deregulation. Well, we've been finding out whether people think that they are getting a good deal or not from their local buses.
Well, in Warrington I've found they're not as frequent as in London, and also after about tea time here they're less regular, and I think it makes it difficult for people to get out and about of an evening.
Compared to driving, there's no incentive, especially in Cambridge where we're from. We've got the park and ride incentives, and they're now charging to park. It takes a long time to get into Cambridge, and if you were just to park at, say, a shopping centre, it would be cheaper.
In Liverpool, it's definitely cheaper to get the train than the bus.
We used to use them coming to town, say, once a week, me and the 3 children, and now it's cheaper to use the cars. The buses, say, are 1 hour now, and it's just not often enough for the likes of us.
In our central London studio is Mark Roney, who co-authored the report. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning. Could you tell us specifically what problems people are experiencing now that deregulation apparently doesn't seem to have offered the best deal for customers?
Well, I think you heard a lot of it just there in your VT. Buses are really important to the population as a whole. In fact, they're much more important than railway. There's over 3 times as many people using buses. They're important in terms of relieving congestion, for access to employment for many, many people, and of course they're used by everyone. And as well as people in rural areas who just don't have necessarily own a car or have access to a railway station. But as our report shows, the market isn't working for those people.
So how isn't it working?
Well, what you've got is a situation back in 1986, the market outside London was completely deregulated. And as a result, we've had 2 completely different disparities. In London, the patronage has increased by 99% since then, and outside of London, it's decreased by 35% since then. You've got a series of regional monopolies around the country that aren't working, fares are going up, and then you've got this crazy situation where the poorest 20% of people outside of London take almost double the number of taxi journeys as the richest 20%. That's just madness.
The Confederation for Transport says that a commercial market offers a greater choice for customers. Your response to that?
Well, there isn't actually a lot of choice. The Competition Commission did an investigation into the bus markets, and they found that less than 1% actually faced choice competition over most or all of their routes. So that's just not true. What we're arguing for is something like what happens in London across the country. So London has worked because there has been strategic oversight of both governance and of funding. Whereas outside London, what you've got is the DfT throwing about 400 million, communities and local government throwing about 1.8 billion, the Department of Education throwing $1 billion, and the Department of Health throwing 400 million, and nothing's happening. Nobody's looking to see what's going on. So we're arguing for regional transport bodies like Transport for London to be set up around the country to try and bring some sense to these markets.
Comparing your report to a report by the independent watchdog Passenger Focus, which was in March, it showed that 20,000 bus users outside of London gave an overall satisfaction score of 88%. That's very high, and it contradicts what you're saying.
It is very high, but actually if you continue to look at the passenger focus surveys, you'll find that when they actually talk about value for money, it drops much lower. In fact, last year's survey, only 30% of bus passengers were saying that they had got value for money. You know, when you've got disparities between 30% and 88%, there's something very different between saying you're satisfied overall with everything and whether you're actually getting value for money. So, there's something wrong with those surveys.
OK. Mark Roney, thank you very much for joining us and taking us through the report.
Thank you.
Also coming up on Breakfast this morning,